One day you will die. You already know this. I know it too. We all know it. And it's precisely because of this, that feeling of one day I'll die, that hits you while sipping a coffee in the late afternoon, that you're set apart from every other living thing. A dog doesn't know it will die tomorrow. A lion doesn't think about it. A whale swimming in the ocean depths doesn't wonder how many years it has left. But you think about it. Maybe even right now. And this thought both destroys you and makes you human. So what about 50,000 years ago? Did that man too lie awake with this at night? Now go back 50,000 years. In the middle of Europe, a cave. Snow outside, fire inside. A man is sitting, holding a tool made of stone and some red pigment. He's drawing something on the wall. Himself? The animal he hunted? No. The figure he's drawing is the friend who died that morning. The man has been drawing for hours. No one told him to do this. No one taught him this tradition. It came from within. And this instinct, this urge to search for meaning, this is what brings us to today's topic. Did that man truly know his friend would never come back? You've always been told the first humans were a part of nature. They lived like animals and died like animals. Death, for them, was just a biological end. No search for meaning, no fear, no ritual. The body simply stopped, and life went on. It sounds reasonable. But it's wrong. Completely, provably wrong. And the findings that show this come from some of the most spine-chilling archaeological discoveries in human history. Evidence that waited underground for decades, evidence that opens up the mind of a human from 50,000 years ago. Here's the part no one told you. Ancient humans didn't just feel what death was. They tried to understand it. They performed rituals. They dug graves. They laid flowers. They placed gifts. They applied pigment. And to do this, they first had to grasp one thing: this person is never coming back. This isn't just disappeared. This is over. This comprehension, this pure, dark, deep comprehension, is what sets you apart from every other living thing. And the evidence for this comprehension stretches back more than 100,000 years. In northern Iraq, at the foot of the Zagros Mountains, Shanidar Cave. In the 1960s, the American archaeologist Ralph Solecki is carrying out an excavation here. He opens a Neanderthal grave. Inside is a skeleton, a male aged 30 to 45. But in the layer of soil surrounding the skeleton, there's something more: traces of pollen. From dozens of different plant species, in dense amounts. Laboratory analysis shows this: these plants were deliberately placed there. This human, while burying someone they loved, laid flowers over them. Groundsel. Ephedra. Grape hyacinth. This is not just an accident. This was a farewell ceremony. And this ceremony dates back 60,000 years. But wait a second. Neanderthals are not our ancestors. They're not the same species as us. A separate branch of evolution. A smaller frontal brain lobe, a different language capacity. So we need to ask this question: if even they were doing this, then where does this ritual come from? Why flowers? Why a grave? Why does this behavior appear again and again, in dozens of different cultures unaware of each other, on different continents, across different centuries? This isn't a culture. This is an instinct. South Africa, Pinnacle Point Cave. 164,000 years ago. One of the oldest pieces of evidence of symbolic behavior in Homo sapiens was found here: red ochre pigment iron oxide, processed and used. This pigment was applied to the face and body. Researchers initially thought it was something practical. Maybe an insect repellent, maybe sun protection. But the pattern is consistent and repeats. And when combined with other findings, the picture becomes clear: this pigment was used in mourning rituals. The human wanted to make their loss visible. They wrote it on their body. Because they couldn't hold it inside. Neuroscience says this: the human brain is the only brain that can form a mental connection between past and future. Scientists call this mental time travel. Right now you can imagine 10 years from now. You know your mother will grow old. You know your own hair will turn white. And it's precisely because of this capacity that, 50,000 years ago, a human could think, this person is gone. Yesterday they were here. Today they're not. Tomorrow they won't be either. Animals can't form this connection. The mental bridge that unites past and future doesn't exist in them. But it exists in you. And this bridge condemns you to the awareness of death. So here's what emerges: being aware of death is not a byproduct of human intelligence. It's a direct consequence of it. As the capacity for symbolic thought developed, the concept of death inevitably came along with it. One cannot be separated from the other. Read this again: thinking and knowing death began at the same time. There was no language. There was no writing. There was no religion. There was no temple. There was no philosophy. But the fear of death. Pure, raw, wordless fear of death existed. And that fear is still inside you today. So why did evolution choose this? What good is being aware of death? It sounds like a disadvantage. Depression, anxiety, existential crisis, all of these come from the awareness of death. Why didn't natural selection eliminate it? Here comes the unexpected answer: a human aware of death prepares for tomorrow. They store their food. They seek a place to take shelter. They protect their child. They flee from danger. The fear of death is the most powerful engine of survival behaviors. Evolution gave you a gift. The name of the gift: fear. And thanks to this fear, your ancestors survived. Cortisol, the stress hormone. When it perceives a threat, it's secreted, speeds up your heart, prepares your muscles, sharpens your attention. Research shows this: the thought of death, even just the thought, without any real danger, triggers cortisol. For ancient humans, this mechanism was vital. Seeing someone from their tribe die instantly alerted their system: watch out. This is real. This danger is real. You can die too. This was a biological alarm system, and an extremely functional one. Today you set off that alarm needlessly. But that alarm is still there. Because your brain is still in the cave. But then, what about this? If ancient humans knew death, did it paralyze them? Were they afraid to step out of the cave every morning? No. And here's where the most fascinating trait of humans emerges: for a being that knows death, there are two paths. Either you become paralyzed, you sink into meaninglessness. Or you search for meaning, you build something in spite of meaninglessness. The ancient human's choice was the second. And this choice started something that still continues today: creating meaning. Art. Ritual. Belief. Love. Israel, Skhul Cave, the foot of Mount Carmel. 100,000 years ago. Archaeologists open a grave. Inside is a child's skeleton. And there's something left between that child's arms: a wild boar's jaw. A large, strong, sturdy jaw. This can't be a coincidence. This is a gift to the afterlife. Provisions. Researchers interpret it like this: that parent believed their child had gone somewhere. They didn't want them to go hungry where they'd gone. The hand that placed something beside the child is no different from the hand that chooses a funeral flower today. Let that sentence settle. The question no one asks is this: what exactly did the first human who knew death feel? What was that first moment of awareness like? No fossil can show this. But we can imagine this: maybe they were young. Maybe they lost their mother. Maybe for days they tried to wake her, brought food to her side, tried to warm her. And then one morning they stopped. And they understood: this time it's different. This time she's not coming back. That not coming back moment must have been the loneliest moment the world has ever seen. Because before that moment, no one had ever experienced this. That human was the first individual of their species to grieve. Here's Grunk's favorite archaeological detail. In some ancient graves, the bones are seen to be arranged with extreme care: knees slightly bent, hands folded on the chest, head turned in a particular direction. As if someone labored for a long time so the person would be comfortable. 50,000 years ago, a man adjusts his dead friend's arm. Then he looks again. He doesn't like it. He adjusts it again. Why? Because it looks better that way. This behavior is absurd. And at the same time, at its core, completely human. Today too, at funerals, we straighten the tie. Some things don't change. There was no language. But there was mourning. There was no music. But there was ritual. There were no words. But there was meaning. Archaeologists find strikingly similar patterns in prehistoric graves all over the world: red pigment, flowers, an object left beside the body, a particular orientation, usually toward the east, toward where the sun rises. This is a language. A wordless, universal language that knows no continent. Humans, unaware of each other, thousands of kilometers apart, were doing the same thing. Because no one had taught them this language. This language came from within. And that language is still spoken today in cemeteries, at funerals, in mourning ceremonies. Now we come to the part that's truly heavy. Think about this: a human knows death. They know their own death. But they can't talk about it with anyone. There are no words. There's no religion. There's no philosophy. There's no book to console them, no prayer to say. There's only that fear in the darkness, in the silence of the cave, that cold, heavy fear that comes while lying awake at midnight. I will go too. And they're completely alone with this thought. Perhaps this was the heaviest burden in human history. To know death, but to not yet have invented the word to describe it. Atapuerca, Spain. 430,000 years ago. Homo heidelbergensis, the common ancestor of Neanderthals and modern humans. Archaeologists find bones belonging to 28 different individuals in a pit they name Sima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. At a single depth, all together. Did they fall in by accident? No. Did a flood carry them? Analysis doesn't support that. The interpretation the vast majority of archaeologists agree on is this: a deliberate burial. 430,000 years ago. This is the oldest known intentional burial practice. And for this practice to exist, only one thing is required: that those humans had understood death is irreversible. Now when you go to a funeral today, or when you get unexpected news, or just when that feeling comes at night, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to put your hands, not knowing what to say, that feeling is 430,000 years old. That feeling came to you through evolution. The Neanderthal who laid flowers on the stone felt exactly it too. So did that anonymous human who arranged the bones with care. The human's first response to death was not words. It was not logic. It was simply being there. It was simply standing beside them. Did ancient humans know they would die? Yes. But they weren't destroyed because they knew it. Because they knew it, they searched for meaning. They laid flowers. They dug graves. They applied pigment. They sat beside one another and stayed together in silence. And you do the same thing. Because the only animal that knows death is also the only animal that searches for meaning. These two things, the awareness of death and the search for meaning, perhaps were never separate. Perhaps one couldn't exist without the other. And perhaps all of humanity's art, all its music, all its love, all of it was born from that first dark awareness.